St. Anne police. If you're in here, anybody come out.
Police!
We got a third down.
She thought she was walking into an ordinary afternoon. Keys in hand, door unlocked, maybe a quiet house, maybe her mom calling out from the kitchen. Instead, there was silence. Not the peaceful kind, the heavy kind, the kind that presses against your chest before your brain even understands why. Then she saw it. Plastic, blood, something on the floor that didn't look human anymore, but somehow she knew it was. Within seconds, a trembling voice dialed 999, and what she said next would freeze even seasoned operators. Her mother wasn't just dead, half of her body was missing. This wasn't a burglary gone wrong. It wasn't a domestic argument spiraled out of control. It was something darker, more deliberate, almost ritualistic. And as detectives stepped inside that quiet home in a peaceful English neighborhood, they weren't just looking at a murder scene. They were standing inside a puzzle built by someone who either wanted to be caught or believed they never would be. Because what they were about to uncover would be far stranger than anyone imagined. The first officers to arrive at 49 and Drive in Llanelli weren't prepared for what waited behind that front door. You can train for violence. You can study crime scenes. But you can't rehearse walking into a house that still smells like someone's breakfast, while half of that someone is missing. Abigail Shepard stood outside when police pulled up, pale, shaking, repeating the same sentence over and over. "It's definitely my mom," as if saying it enough times might make it less real. Inside, the scene was worse than the call had described. June Fox Roberts lay on the living room floor, 65 years old, a grandmother, known in the neighborhood as polite, warm, and private. But what officers saw didn't resemble the woman her children knew. Only the upper portion of her torso remained. Her head, arms, and legs were gone. For a moment, even seasoned detectives hesitated. Where were the limbs? Blood pooled across the carpet and stretched toward the hallway. There were drag marks, heavy ones, suggesting her body had been moved after death. Someone hadn't just killed her. Someone had worked inside this house, and that changed everything. Because this wasn't panic. It wasn't chaos. It was method. The dining room told more of the story. A large tarp had been laid out. On top of it, plastic wrapping. The kind someone uses when they intend to contain something messy. That meant planning. That meant time. But here's what truly unsettled investigators: the chainsaw lying on the living room floor. At first glance, it seemed obvious. Brutal dismemberment, weapon left behind. Except, it was clean. No blood, no tissue, no visible trace that it had been used at all. So why leave it there? Was it a decoy? A staged detail meant to mislead? Or had the killer changed plans mid-attack? The forensic team moved slowly, every step measured. Bloodstain pattern analysis began immediately. There were directional stains near the hallway, indicating movement after the assault. Some droplets were elongated, showing motion. Others were circular, meaning they'd fallen straight down. Whoever did this hadn't rushed. Then came the footprints, large ones, size 11 or 12 by initial estimate, deep impressions in drying blood. They moved from the living room toward the hallway and back again. The gait looked uneven, possibly a limp or someone carrying significant weight. The killer had walked through the scene, calmly. Upstairs, something else stood out. In the bathroom sink, forensic officers noticed fresh hair dye residue. Dark pigment clung to the porcelain. Not something you'd expect during a murder, unless someone had altered their appearance afterward. That suggested another possibility. The killer had spent time in the house after the attack, and if that was true, the psychological profile shifted dramatically. This wasn't a quick in-and-out intrusion. This was someone comfortable enough to wash up. Then came the rubber gloves, bloody, discarded inside a plastic bag, not thrown away outside, not burned, just left behind. Why? Was it arrogance? Or deterioration of mental clarity? As officers continued their search, they stepped into the dining room again and found something that stopped them cold. A large, Cinderella-themed Christmas gift bag sat against the wall. Inside it, a full human leg. Not hidden well, not buried, just placed inside like holiday wrapping. When the rest of the carrier bags were opened, the remaining body parts were located. June's head, her arms, each separated cleanly, packaged. This wasn't random violence, it was systematic. Underneath the bags, partially concealed, was a large axe. That discovery shifted the investigation once more. The chainsaw likely hadn't been used at all. The dismemberment had probably been done manually, slower, more deliberate. requiring significant physical force. Which raised another question: how much rage does it take to do that? And toward whom was it directed? The neighborhood itself offered little help. Quiet, low crime, no CCTV cameras covering June's property, no local authority surveillance nearby. The nearest public camera was miles away. For detectives, that was a nightmare scenario. No digital footprint, no witnesses reporting screams, no forced entry immediately visible. The home didn't look ransacked. There was no clear theft motive. Valuables remained untouched. So if this wasn't robbery, what was it? A personal grudge? A psychotic break? Or something even more unpredictable? A killer without motive? June's children, Abigail, Sebastian, and Tricia, were devastated. Grief mixed with confusion. They needed answers, and detectives needed to determine whether the threat was contained or still walking freely. Because dismemberment often signals extreme emotional detachment or extreme emotional overload. In either case, it increases the risk of repeat behavior. The investigation expanded outward. Search teams combed the fields behind the house, looking for discarded remains. Nothing. They canvassed neighbors. No one reported suspicious noise. No one had seen a stranger enter or leave. It was as if the crime had unfolded inside a sealed bubble. And yet, something didn't sit right with the timeline. The blood pattern suggested the attack happened indoors, but there were no signs of struggle extending through the house. That implied June may have been caught off guard. Perhaps she knew her killer. Perhaps she let them in. That possibility forced detectives to examine the family dynamic, carefully, cautiously. But before any theory could solidify, they needed one thing above all else: a suspect. And at that moment, they had none. Just a brutally dismembered grandmother, a staged chainsaw, an axe hidden beneath gift bags, fresh hair dye in the sink, and footprints leading nowhere. The case was already horrifying, but what detectives didn't know yet was that the real break wouldn't come from forensic science alone. It would come from someone wandering only minutes away from that house, someone carrying bags, and acting strangely. 3 hours after detectives sealed off June Fox Roberts' home, a call came in that, at first, didn't seem connected at all. A nearby tire yard reported a man climbing out of one of their industrial containers, homeless, disheveled, acting strangely. Normally, that might have resulted in a simple welfare check. But timing is everything in homicide investigations, and this timing was impossible to ignore. The yard was only a 5-minute walk from June's house. Workers described him as odd. His hair looked recently dyed, his behavior erratic. At times, he appeared to be talking to himself, or to his own shadow. There were fresh scratches on his face. He carried bags, heavy ones. By the time officers arrived, he was gone, but CCTV wasn't. Detectives reviewed the footage carefully. The man appeared in frame carrying a green and white carrier bag and a black rucksack. His walk was distinctive, slightly limping, almost dragging one leg. Either injured, exhausted, or weighed down. "Those bags look heavy," one officer muttered. And then came the first real shift in the case. The man's hair, clearly dyed, recently. Upstairs in June's house, fresh hair dye residue had been found in the bathroom sink. Coincidence? Unlikely. They replayed the footage again. The limp, the bags, the dyed hair. Then someone noticed something else. Something subtle but impossible to unsee once spotted. The man bore an unusual resemblance to June's daughter, Tricia Fox. Not identical, but similar facial structure, similar build. It sounded wild at first, almost irresponsible to suggest. But investigators had also heard rumors circulating locally. Whispered speculation that Tricia might somehow be involved. After all, she had transitioned and had previously been known as Tristan Fox Roberts. But rumors aren't evidence, and Tricia had an alibi placing her out of town during the murder. Still, the resemblance lingered in the back of investigators' minds. The man in the footage quickly earned a nickname inside the investigation room: Container Man, because that's where he had been found, climbing out of a container only hours after a brutal dismemberment nearby. He immediately became a person of interest. Detectives circulated still images of him, focusing especially on his clothing, the jacket, the t-shirt, the limp. They needed a name. In parallel, another thread was quietly eliminated. A 25-year-old art student named Luke Dilly had initially raised eyebrows because he had been reported missing around the same time as June's murder. But once investigators compared his appearance to Container Man, they dismissed the connection. Luke was described as well-groomed, clean, put together, Container Man looked rough, dirt-streaked, skin darkened from sleeping outdoors, hair hacked unevenly as if cut with scissors. Two different people, or so it seemed. Then, less than 24 hours later, officers received a break. Container Man had been located in a nearby village. When approached, he identified himself as Lewis Thomas. He appeared nervous, but not combative. Officers conducted a quick search and discovered he was carrying what he described as a nunchuck thing. Not illegal on its own, but unusual. He was arrested on suspicion of murder. As officers secured him, they studied him more closely. The dyed hair, the scratches, the uneven walk. The resemblance to the CCTV figure was unmistakable. Inside his bag, detectives found writings, erratic notes that hinted at paranoia and instability. Nothing that directly confessed to murder, but enough to suggest a fractured mental state. Before they could begin formal interviews, another call came in. A witness reported interacting with another homeless man in a nearby car park. Detectives pulled the CCTV, and what they saw stunned them. The man walking through the car park had the same limp, the same green and white carrier bag, the same black rucksack. But this time, he looked different, cleaner, less disheveled, more like Luke Dilly. They froze the frame, replayed it, zoomed in. The facial structure matched Luke, but the container yard footage showed someone rougher, dirtier, haircut crudely. Someone double-layered him, one detective muttered. Shaved, changed. The realization hit hard. Container Man and Luke Dilly were the same person. Luke hadn't been missing. He had been living rough, adopting a different persona, dyeing his hair, altering his appearance. Arranging one at short notice wasn't easy. Time drained away. Meanwhile, detectives brought Trisha into the station to clarify clothing evidence found at the scene. Specifically, a jacket and top that didn't belong to June. When shown the photographs, Trisha's reaction was immediate. "That's my top. Why is it there?" Her voice cracked. The implication was chilling. If her clothing had been left behind, someone had changed at the crime scene, and Luke had been seen carrying bags. Forensics focused heavily on a pair of black Adidas shorts recovered inside one of the carrier bags containing body parts. Size medium, tear on the left leg. If the killer changed clothes inside the house, there was a strong chance those shorts carried wear DNA, skin cells embedded in the waistband. But Luke refused to provide a DNA sample. Without it, comparison would be difficult. So detectives pivoted. They dug into Luke's background. What they uncovered painted a disturbing psychological profile. He had struggled with mental health issues since adolescence, diagnosed conditions, episodes of instability. The first person to report him missing? His psychiatrist. Former housemates described unsettling behavior, eating liver for breakfast, leaving raw meat juices on the floor, arguments escalating unpredictably. His social media posts were darker still. Threats, violent fantasies, statements about being a psycho. Individually, none of it proved murder. Collectively, it built pressure. Meanwhile, surveillance teams continued tracing his movements around June's neighborhood. And finally, the breakthrough. Footage showed Luke walking near June's address carrying the same bag seen at the tire yard. He entered the rear garden, security lights activated. Then he disappeared from view. That was the last recorded sighting before June's body was discovered. 20 seconds walk from her door. The net was tightening. With only hours left on the custody clock, Luke finally agreed to provide a DNA sample. Forensics rushed the analysis. The waistband of the Adidas shorts was prioritized. That area typically yields strong wearer DNA due to friction and skin cell shedding. Detectives waited. Every minute mattered. Then the call came in. A full DNA profile had been obtained from the shorts. It matched Luke Dilly. The same shorts found inside a bag containing June's severed arm. The room fell silent when that confirmation came through. This wasn't circumstantial anymore. This was biological evidence placing him inside the dismemberment. Detectives returned to the interview room one final time. They laid it out clearly. Your DNA is on the shorts. The shorts were inside the bag. The bag contained her arm. Explain that. Luke's response? No comment. They pressed further. Did you dye your hair? Did you shave? Did you change clothes to avoid detection? Because even without a confession, the evidence was speaking louder than he ever would. When detectives walked back into the interview room for the final time, the atmosphere had changed. This wasn't fishing anymore. This wasn't theory. It was confrontation. Luke sat still, expression controlled, eyes distant, as if the entire process existed somewhere slightly outside of him. The lead detective laid it out carefully. No theatrics, no raised voice. The Adidas shorts found in the bag containing June's severed arm, the waistband tested, A full DNA profile recovered, a perfect match to Luke Dilly. There was no ambiguity left. For a brief second, you might expect something. Anger, denial, panic. Instead, no comment. Again, calm, detached. They pushed once more. Did you enter June's home in the early hours of November 21st? No comment. Did you subject her to a violent attack? No comment. Did you dismember her body? No comment. Silence can sometimes be louder than confession, and in that room, it was deafening. With the forensic evidence secured, detectives formally charged Luke with murder and preventing the lawful burial of a body. The weapon used for dismemberment, likely the axe found beneath the gift bags, had not yet been definitively proven through trace analysis, but the blood patterns and positioning strongly suggested manual dismemberment rather than the staged chainsaw left behind. Investigators now believed Luke entered June's home during the early morning hours. There were no signs of forced entry, raising the possibility that she may have unlocked the door voluntarily, or that it had been left unsecured. What happened inside those walls would never be fully reconstructed in exact detail. The autopsy confirmed multiple blunt force traumas to June's head, the fatal injuries occurring before dismemberment. The brutality wasn't just physical, it was excessive. And yet, motive remained unclear. There was no established relationship between Luke and June, no financial link, no prior disputes, no robbery, nothing stolen, which led investigators toward the most disturbing possibility of all. There may have been no conventional motive. Before trial proceedings began, Luke was transferred to a high-security psychiatric hospital. Evaluations revealed he had been suffering from paranoid schizophrenia, a condition that, when untreated or destabilized, can severely distort perception of reality. For 14 months, he remained under psychiatric assessment. On April 28, 2023, Luke appeared in court. He admitted to manslaughter by reason of diminished responsibility, acknowledging he had killed June, but arguing his mental illness substantially impaired his judgment at the time. The Crown accepted the plea. He was given an indefinite hospital order, meaning he will remain detained in a secure psychiatric facility for treatment, with release dependent entirely on medical and judicial review. For June's family, the outcome brought closure, but not comfort. Abigail was the one who found her mother's body. That image will never leave her. Sebastian and Tricia were left to reconcile the fact that the man responsible wasn't a calculating mastermind hiding in plain sight, but a deeply disturbed individual living a fractured double life just minutes away. A peaceful neighborhood, a quiet grandmother, a crime scene that looked like something from a horror film, and a killer who walked away carrying bags. This case forces an uncomfortable question. How do you protect against violence when the threat doesn't come from revenge, greed, or personal hatred, but from untreated psychological collapse? Because sometimes, evil doesn't announce itself. It drifts. It deteriorates quietly. It changes its hair. It limps past CCTV cameras. It lives in containers. And then, one morning, it knocks on a door, and someone answers. If this story left you unsettled, that's because it should. Cases like this challenge everything we think we understand about motive, mental illness, and human behavior. So let me ask you something. Do you believe crimes like this are preventable, or are some tragedies impossible to predict? Share your thoughts in the comments. I read them all. And if you want more deep dives into real cases that go beyond the headlines, make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss what's next.